In this video, I'm going to be taking you through how I made this spec ad for skincare brand Rationale. I'm going to be showing you how I modeled the product, textured it, made the curtain and the flower animation. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is to model the serum bottle and delete everything in the scene, go into front view and shift A and add a reference image. Yeah, we have a reference image. You can get this image off of their website if you would want to model this particular thing. So add a cylinder with vertices of 8. Go into X-ray mode, scale it down, move the spots down, extrude on the Z. We're just trying to get the general shape of the serum bottle. Also move this down, extrude with E and Z on the Z axis, extrude again, and we have what would kind of resemble the general shape of the bottle. Go into face select this top face, delete it, select the bottom face and insert once and insert one more time and delete this face. Go hit the / key to isolate the selected object. Select this loop and hit function F3 and search for grid fill, and that's that. So the next thing we would need to do is to add a subdivision surface modifier, and completely ruins the model wall. We then need to add loop cuts to tighten up the edges. So add a loop cut here, add another loop cut here, add one loop cut here, and add another loop cut here. Just basically adding loop cuts to tighten up edges. And if you bring back the model and go into front view, you can select the model, go into X-ray mode, select all, scale, and hit Shift Z to scale on the Y and the X axis but not on the Z axis. So if you scale it up, this then matches perfectly with the reference image. So the next thing we can do is to add a solidify modifier. First of all, we can shade smooth, then add a solidify modifier to it. I usually put my solidifier above the subdivision, increase the thickness of it, shade smooth, and also add an edge loop here to make this look a lot better. So the next thing we need to do is to make the thread for the cover. So usually bottles have like the threads around the mouth, and this is very simple. Shift A, curve, and select curve spirals and arc median. Adjust the height like this. This should be enough. Then scale it down, go into front view, move it up, scale it up a bit, just to make sure that it's at the center. Go into the object data properties, go into geometry and increase the depth. can add a subdivision on this to make it look smoother. One should be enough. Then grab this and move it in. Also grab this and move it in. And there we have the bottle. We can now model the cover. Same drill, add a cylinder, 8 vertices, scale it down, move it up, try to match it up with the shape. Hit the / key and face select to delete the bottom face. Go to the top, insert once, insert again, delete this face, and grid fill. Add a subdivision surface modifier and tighten up the edges. Next thing, add a solidify modifier to give it some thickness. Also go into the data properties under normals, auto smooth, and move the solidify above the subdivision. And that is the cap done. For the serum, it's also very simple. I think we just need Shift A, a cylinder, scale it down. Pretty much everything right now can be gotten from a cylinder. Move it up a bit. So I think this needs to be smaller. Scale it down. Go into X-ray mode. Select this. Move it down. Extrude. Scale it down. You can also go in and look at references of what the serum looks like. Going to face select, delete this face, set adjust a bit, insert again, and delete this face. Add a subdivision surface to it and shade smooth. We have the bottle, the cover, and the serum thing. I'm not sure what it's called. If you know what it's called, please put it in the comment section so we can all learn. You can parent the cover to the serum. Select the serum thing, the cover, Ctrl P, and object keep transform. So when you grab this, it also comes along with the serum. So now the next thing is the label. So this white part with the name and the serum, like the branding basically. So very simple. We just need to select this, go to face select, select this entire section, Shift D to duplicate, P and separate by selection. We can delete the subdivision, the solidify, I beg your pardon, delete the solidify modifier and select this, set origin to geometry, scale it up a bit, go into edit mode, bring this part down and this part up. We can bring back the reference image just to make sure. Bring this part up and this part up. And here now we have all the parts of this the model. Now we can split our screen because we would need to start texturing. Go into look dev mode and go into the shader editor. Select this and add a new material, principled BSDF, give it a black color. So usually when you're doing product photography, a lot of the realism comes from surface imperfections. The first thing I usually would add is a roughness map with fingerprints. So I'll just bring that in and drag it and put it to the roughness, and as you can see, it's not unwrapped properly. If you want to see what the UV unwrap looks like, Shift A, image, texture, add it to the base color, select new, blank, and UV grid. So this is what the UVs currently look like. So the first thing we need to do is to add seams. So if you go to front view, we can go to the back, know where the back is, go to the back, add a seam here. You hold Control and box select to remove these extra seams because we do not want to add seams right around. I think this is okay. We hit Control E and mark seam. Select, hold Alt and select this loop, Control E, mark seam. And when we select all, hue and unwrap, we then get this, and we have this situation at the back where it's like very warped. And one way I've used to solve this issue, if there's a better solution, please put it in the comment section, but one way I used to fix this issue is to add more loop cuts here and move them GG up and down to try to straighten it out. Next thing we need to do is to straighten these UVs, and straighten UVs we just need to go into the UV editor, go to vertex, select this vertex, select this vertex, scale Y0, select this, scale Y0, select this, scale X0, select this and select this, scale X0. And when this particular part is straight, so we need to look for something that is relatively straight at the moment and just make it completely straight by scaling on 0. So we go to face, select this face, and L to select the entire island, right click and hit follow chords. Then we basically just need to scale this to the size of the UV area. And we have a really good UV at the moment. Now we can pretty much take it off and then look at fingerprints. Fingerprints are coming out great. You can also use a color ramp to control the fingerprint. So Shift A, color ramp. This is in the shader editor now. Color ramp, and if you hold Control Shift and left click on the color ramp, we can easily visualize what is going on. If you drag the black to the right, this happens, and this basically means that it's more metallic, so it's more glossy. I should say it's more glossy. So we have the fingerprints done. Nothing looks warped. It looks correctly mapped on top of the object. The next thing we need to do is to add scratches. So same thing with the scratches, but for scratches, and I learned this like recently, you should add scratches to a displacement channel, because scratches are like surface detail. So while fingerprints don't necessarily have surface detail, they're just like when you hold an object, it's just like an image on the bottle, but scratches like have deformations, generates deformations on the surface, so it should be on the displacement map. So Shift A, add a displacement, connect this to the displacement of the material output, and then connect the color to the height, and we get this very detailed scratch texture on the surface. It's extremely overpowered at the moment. First of all, add a color ramp to this, and because if you notice, the scratches seem to be coming out of the bottle, so they are kind of like the opposite of what we need them to be. So we need to flip the color ramp, and now we have scratches that are going inside as they should be. Then bring down the scale, hold Control and drive your slider down. Adjust the mid level also 0.01, and also probably bring down the scale a little more to 0.003. You want this to be as subtle as possible, because these are like products. It's going to be a product video, product image, so you do not want the bottle to be looking old and worn out. You want to add this, but you want to be as subtle as possible, so I think we need to bring this down a bit. The cover kind of has a similar material going for it, so what I'll just do is to select the cover, select the bottle, Ctrl L, and link the materials, but then go to the material section and click on this new material, so it duplicates the material, and then adjust the roughness, because from the reference image, the cover doesn't seem as glossy as the body. One very important thing I should mention is when you go over to the image textures, for anything that is not plugged into the base color, you should always change the color space from sRGB to non-color. So both for the displacement channel, the displacement image texture, and the roughness image texture. This is what we have at the moment. So the next thing we need to do is to add the label. Again, we need to unwrap this first. Just go to the front so you know where the back is. Go towards the back, add a seam here, Ctrl E, mark seam, A, U, and unwrap. And we have this made a label in Photoshop of the bottle. But the thing I usually do with like paper textures, this is where you don't necessarily have to do everything on your own. I just go to Blender kits and search for paper and look for one that has like subtle wrinkles. This one looks like it would do the job, so we just drag and drop this on the material. We get this. If we go into the object group, we see all the textures. So it has a roughness, metallic, displacement, all the 9. So we just need to replace the base color with the branding I already made. So we just need to search for it, and we have this. Go back into edit mode, you unwrap, and just drag this on the X so it covers the branding. And disconnect this and this, and just drag this directly onto the base color. and we have branding that also has sort of like paper texture. The next thing we're going to do is to make the curtain animation, but before that I already like set up my scene. So this is like the bathroom scene. I wanted it to be at like the corner of the room with the window open and lights coming through the bathroom, so I added an HDRI outside and also used a human mesh to sort of like get somewhat correct measurements of the scene. I got this bathroom set of Blender assets, this particular one by Mike Radjabov. Really good models and very nice textures on it. I also modeled the complete collection of the products. So yeah, that's where we are now. So the next thing is to make the curtain. So make sure your cursor is at world origin, Shift A, add a plane. You can use the / to isolate the object that I selected, scale it on the X, go into edit mode and subdivide it, say like 50 times. Bring back everything. Now rotate this on the X by 90, rotate it on the Z by -90, and and then move it to the window where it's supposed to be. So just move it anywhere in your scene where it's supposed to be. In my case, it's by the window, this position. So yeah, we have the curtain now, and next thing we need to do is to go into the physics properties and add a cloth, and in the cloth add the silk preset. So go back to the first frame, and if we play the animation, we see this happens. Then the next thing is to add a wind object. So Shift A, force field, wind, rotate it on the Y by -90 degrees, and then position it where it's supposed to be. Right view, just put it directly behind the curtain and give it a strength of 1000 and a flow of 3. So when we play the animation now, you can see this happens. So we're getting there. Now we obviously do not want the curtain to be falling down, so we need to pin certain vertices to stay in place. So if you go to edge select this top vertice, go down to shape, pin. Before this, so we select this top vertices, go to the object data properties and add a vertex group and assign those vertices to the group. Then go back to physics, go into shape, pin group, and add that group. So if we then play the animation, we see that that's part of the curtain is now pinned. So the next thing is to make this look more like a curtain. So if we go back into edit mode and snap our cursor to this top vertice, that the top edge that we selected, so cursor to selected, and then add a cube there, scale it down, scale it on the Y for it to kind of like cover the entire curtain. And the next thing we need to do is select the curtain, go to constraints and add a copy scale to it, and then select the cube. When this happens, it means that we didn't apply the scale of the cube, so Ctrl A, scale, and then select the curtain, also Ctrl A, scale. So the next thing we need to do is select the cube, play the animation, and scale this on the Y, and this happens. If you scale it on the Z, this happens. Scale it on the X, and we see that it's the one on the X that works. So go back to the beginning of the animation, play the animation, scale on the X, and we have this. This looks a lot more like curtains. So what we then need to do is to animate the scale. So when the wind starts blowing, this thing scales on the X and it makes it look more like curtains while it's blowing in the wind. So we add a keyframe for scale and go maybe 20 frames forward or 15 frames and scale it on the X. And if you go back to the beginning of the animation, maybe we move this forward by like 5 frames. So when we play the animation, this then happens. We can even leave it at the beginning of the animation, go back to the beginning, so it looks more like so. And that's basically how to make curtains. We can go to this and go to modifiers tab and add a subdivision to make it look a bit better, and also add a solidify modifier to give it a bit of thickness before we add the material. Again, the material was gotten just like a mesh material gotten off of Sketchfab, not Sketchfab, gotten off of Blender kits rather. So yeah, the last thing we need to do is to bake the animation. So select the curtain, go to the physics, go down to cache and bake all dynamics. And that's basically how to make curtain, like a waving curtain animation in Blender. Okay, so the next animation I'm going to be showing is how I made the flower animation, and I learned how to do this from this YouTube channel Checks, where he shows how to animate different flowers. I'm just going to be doing this for this particular flower that I made. So the first thing we need to do is to select the bottom of the flower and add a vertex group to it and assign a new vertex group to those vertices. We need to duplicate the flowers and sort of like arrange them in a floral pattern. Make sure they're not intersecting with one another. Now we need to add a cloth modifier. Select the first one, add a cloth modifier, quality steps to 8, speed multiplier to 2, vertex mass to 5, compression and the stiffness to 5. Go down to shape and add the pin group that we added. Set collision quality to 6. The distance on object collision to 0.01. Turn on self collision and take the distance down to 0.01. Impulse clamping to 100. And property weights in property weights max compression should be 250. And then we animate the gravity from 0.001 to 0, and then to minus 0.005. When we play the animation, get this. So we then need to copy. Before copying, we need to add a collision modifier, and make sure it's under the cloth modifier, and the thickness outer and inner is set to 0.001. When that is done, we then need to copy these physics properties to the rest of the petals. So search for copy modifiers and select this one. We need to also add a collision modifier to all the other petals, and from the other ones we may add the animation in the gravity also. So now we have this. The next thing we need to do is to add a collider, basically to have it appear like it has like a board inside it. So Shift A, add a cube, scale it down, move it towards the center, go to left view, move it up, add a subdivision surface modifier, scale it on the Z to make it a bit oval, bring it down a bit, apply the subdivision, shade mode, go to physics, add a collision and force field, the force field being under, animate the strength from 0 to say 5, and then 10 frames forward, make it minus 15, and then minus 300 minus 300. When we play the animation, you get this. So when this is done, it's time to export the petals and re-import them as shape keys, and we're going to be exporting them as light wave point caches. So before we do that, select the first petal, go down and bake all dynamics. So after baking all dynamics, we go to the modifiers tab and make sure there are no other modifiers, things like solidify, subdivision, and then we export these models. So select the first one, go to export lightweight point cache, and if you do not see export light wave point cache, you go to edit, preferences, and search for new, and tick this box, go back, export lightweight point cache P1, and just go through. You can also join these things together to be able to export just one flower mesh. So now you've exported them. We then need to select all the flowers, duplicate it, and put it in a spare collection because we will be deleting the keyframe. So select this, delete the keyframes, import what we just exported, delete the first and the last keyframe, and then delete the cloth simulations. Select the second one, delete the gravity keyframes, import the corresponding petal, delete the first and the last keyframe, and then the gravity and collision, and do that for the rest of them. So now if we play the animation, you can see everything sticking to one place, so we just need to put them back to their origins. So select and reset the location, rotation, and scale, and do this for the rest of it. So when we've done this, we then add a curve part, rotate it on the Y by 90, select one of the petals, go to the modifiers and add a deform curve modifier, select the curve, and move it towards the petal. Select the rest of the petals, select the petal with the curve modifier and copy to selected. First of all, select the curve, add some depth to it so it has a bit of thickness. Now we need to go to edit preferences and make sure this thing called anim all is checked. Go to animation and select location, select all the petals, make sure those are what's selected. Go to the first frame, select all the keyframes and scale -1 to flip the animation, grab and move it back. So we need to find the point where the flower blooms, so we can start 135. Select this, go into edit mode, select this vertex, insert a keyframe, go to say 20 frames and insert another keyframe, go back, go Y, Z, and you can insert a keyframe here. And when we play the animation, and that was how I animated the flower to bloom. If you made it this far in the video, thank you very much. Let me know what I need to improve on. I'll be doing a lot more of this type of videos where I walk you through some of the animations that I made, spec ads, client work, things like that. So if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe. Thank you very much for watching.